1. You are live, you are live.
Good morning everybody. It's chilly today here on the live safari, the Greater Kruger National Park. We find ourselves within a small section on the western fringes called Djuma Private Game Reserve. Now, my name is James Hendry and I'm standing in a tree as a hornbill might be sitting in a tree, perched, waiting for the first rays of the sun to come up from the east, and that's because it's only 11 degrees Celsius, 51 degrees Fahrenheit, which for us here in South Africa is very cold. Many of you will wondering why it is that my plover-like legs are exposed to the elements today, and the answer is, well, there's so little flesh on them that they actually have no temperature function on my body at all. On camera today, wrapped in 7 jackets, 4 scarves, 8 blankets and several beanie hats, Brian, the Thumb, Joubert. And his thumb is so cold this morning, he's unable to even bring it in front of the lens to show it to you. There we go. Anyway, in the final control, we've got Kirsten Max Smith being ably assisted by Jerry Cheesecake and, of course, Chelsea Green, all the way from the United States of America. You are most welcome. You are the most important part of what's going to happen for the next 3 hours. We're going to be going on a live safari. Hopefully, our plan is to find Sindile. Now, I'm going to explain a bit more about him as we move. But because you are the most important part of the safari, we need to hear from you. Please, hashtag Safari Live if you're on Twitter. It would be great to hear from you. You can email us as well, questions@wildearth.tv if you'd like to do that. Either way will work. We'll get through to you, or you'll get through to us, and you can then ask us any questions or make any comments that you would like to. Please tell us where you're from when you get hold of us, because it's so nice to know where in the world we're talking to you from. I am now going to attempt to dismount from this tree in an elegant fashion, unlike our friend Tingana, the dominant male leopard, who basically falls out of trees, but he is a cat and lands on his feet absolutely fine. I will probably land on my nose and flatten it even further than it is already. Off to the western horizon, the sky is blackened. It was black as I climbed up here, and it's so interesting to me always to watch how the night fades to the west as the day comes from the east. Of course, that's not unusual. It happens every day all over the world. Brian, if I fall from here, will you please put the camera into the sky and rush to my assistance?
I'll film you.
No, don't film me falling.
I will film you.
The other thing, everybody, is that we are one vehicle this morning, but not solo. Oh, no, on foot today and soon to be out is the great mystic farmer, Stefan Winterboer. He will be filmed by the diminutive but highly enthusiastic Willem Doornbraak. This is the most dangerous bit. There we go. Look at my flexibility, Brian.
It's incredible.
Are you so amazed? And the next most dangerous bit, of course, is avoiding this large Sisyphus over here. And so I think I shall probably just leap elegantly from where I am now, hoping to avoid this. I think I'm going to get a strychnos in my bottom.
Wonderful.
There we go. This is a strychnos, everybody. A strychnos madagascarensis. And, well, it's got an interesting fruit that is quite nice, mixed with honey. But the seeds, of course, have strychnine in them, so not a good idea to eat that. And it's very noticeable venation. In other words, the veins of the leaves are distinctive. You see, they come from the base and kind of go all the way around the top. Brian, I see that the little red light is on, which means you were recording my dismount there, weren't you? Just
in case you fell.
yes, for insurance purposes. Okay. Yes, well done. Go. Of course, one cannot feel anything when one has one's gloves on. I'm quite warm now, Brian, after that terrifying exertion. And I get 10 out of 10 for my dismount from the directors. Thank you very much, Max Smith. Right, so Sindile, everybody, almost 2 years old, male leopard, went into rehab, back at home. He was found, well, not found, his collar gave a reading yesterday from the Arathusa airstrip. Now that's not too far from here, and so we are going to kind of drive around this area, which is Treehouse Dam. This is where he spent a lot of time, and then we're going to move towards Arathusa and see if we can't pick something up there. It would be so very nice to see him again. And for those of you who don't know why he was in rehab, he caught a domestic dog which had rabies, and we were very scared that he would get rabies. So he was taken away, put in a rehabilitation center. When I say he went to rehab, I'm not joking. And he then was released about, what is it now, Brian, about 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
And he's been knocking about the Sabi Sands, which is where we are now. It's a collection of private reserves here on the western fringes of the Greater Kruger National Park. And he hasn't been back into his mother's or father's territories until last night. And he's deep within his father's territory and his mother's territory. His mother is Shadow. We haven't seen her for a little while. And his father, Tingana, the dominant male leopard of this area. Well, we think that's his father. Most importantly, Tingana seems to think that he's his father. A lot of beeps from the Game Drive channel. It's because the volume is not on. All right, before I try and figure out what's going on the Game Drive channel, Stefan Winterboer is out and mobile, about to glisten in the morning sun. Let's go and get an update from him.
What would a morning be without, or what would a morning bushwalk be without the obligatory spider that we open with, or at least of some sort that we find during the walk? This lonesome little spider we found camouflaged on this leaf, basically just waiting for the sun to come out so she can be warmed up and she can spin her web. She's a daytime orb spider of some kind, I'm not quite sure, but we've seen quite a lot of them on these Waltheria plants. I'm going to turn the leaf a little bit so that you can see exactly what her abdomen looks like. Look at those colors there, isn't that fantastic? As James mentioned, I'm Stefan Winterboer, and on camera today, making sure that your screen is filled with this arachnid, is VM Durnbach. Lovely morning here this morning in the Sabi Sands. Quite cold, to be quite honest. It's probably around about 60 degrees Fahrenheit, about 10 degrees centigrade. Myself and Kirsty this morning had a shiver while we were having our coffee before we came out. But it looks like it's going to become quite a nice day. I'm quite looking forward to today. Plan for this morning is we are going to go and have a look for the impala carcass, or what's left of it anyway, of the hyenas. The hyenas apparently stole an impala carcass and moved across Philemon's Dip, and we're going to go and see if we can track that out today. But we got sidetracked as always by something, and this young missus, we've seen quite a few of them, as I mentioned in the opening here, in that she will wait until the sun is shining and then she will spin herself an orb web. And she looks quite, and we're seeing a few of these. I'm still not sure what orb this is. I have got a new spider book, but it is singularly possibly the most complex key I've ever had to use in my life, and keying out these spiders are proving a task that is above and beyond my skills at the moment. But nevertheless, we will carry on. And I think a good idea is to walk. Oh, we've got impalas charging us. Who knows what that was from? Yeah, they've just run past us on the open area. Impalas, of course, spend a lot of their time on open areas during the evenings. These big open plains that we have, like we're close to quarantine, are the perfect refuges for them at night time. It makes it very difficult for predators to sneak up on impala on these open.
What we're looking at here, so what you don't want to do in an area like this is get in amongst the herd where they get nervous because they can't see properly because of all the trees, and the same for us. There's a nice gap here in the trees, and these elephants are quite close, which is great. There we go. Brian, sorry, I don't know why the car is making this creaking, groaning noise. Now watch carefully how they move aside the thorny bushes to pick exactly the shoot that they want. That looks like a rather dejected scotia tree or boer bean. And this is a young bull, and behind the young bull, I think it's a young bull, yes, it's a young bull. Behind the young bull, another youngster. So the herd must be more extensive than just these two. Oh dear. I suddenly had a great need to breathe in deeply. I'm not sure where that came from. Ooh.
Are you feeling better now?
Something in the air. I'm feeling very good now, yes. Excellent. Anyway, the extent of the herd is larger than this. And I know that, of course, because there is a very little one just behind this young bull. And in the background, you can hear a black-headed oriole. Oh, look at the toes. Very nice, Brian. Those are toenails, everyone. Now, they don't normally last very long on an elephant's foot. They eventually kind of fall out in the same way that if you run a marathon or hike a lot, you can use your toes. So that happens here. Not your toes, lose your toenails, I mean. That's really cool. I'd love to find one of those in the bush. I've never seen one. I wonder if he'd give it to us. That's on the front foot, and there are normally 5 on the front foot when the elephant's born and 4 on the back. And normally they only maintain the very front one on the back, and often on the front, nothing. Now, a question about whether I'm ever nervous around musk bull elephants. The answer is yes, sometimes. The one that we saw there, oh, look at this, this is wonderful. The musk bull we saw there was quite young, so he didn't kind of terrify me too much, and he showed no interest in us whatsoever, so that didn't worry me. I'm not going to move the car. We're quite close to this chap. Might actually be a young cow. Just try and see between her front legs, or his front legs. That'll confirm it to us. Only standing now about, oh, what did we say, about 10 meters from us. It's a young cow, everyone, it's not a young bull. And that makes sense then, because that's why that other young elephant is around her. I'm not always that easy to tell, and I find myself particularly bad at telling. But now that you know this is a cow, you can point out the fact she's got quite a square forehead, quite thin, pointy tusks, and of course quite a flat back. She didn't like her tusks being described as thin and pointy, did she, Brian?
No, look at it.
Yeah, now very cross with us. Oh well. Yeah, they're all through this thicket, everyone. And you'll find that if we don't get water, these thickets are going to be denuded of trees. They can look a little bit sort of devastated after a dry season, but it's completely normal. And every tree that they push over, remember, forms habitat for any number of other animals. Oh, the usual story, Brian. Please observe, everybody. Every time we watch an animal for any length of time, it must eventually go to the loo. And this young elephant is no exception. Well done. Some lovely bird calls around us here. We've got what used to be called a fan-tailed flycatcher going plee, plee, plee. Kitra, you're in India, and it's lovely to hear from you all the way from India. I hope you're having a, well, I guess it must be fairly late morning there now. I hope it's a good late morning for you. You want to know if they return to the same breeding grounds every year. No, they don't, Kitra. They breed anywhere pretty much. There's no need for them to come back to the same place at all. They will be within their home range, and I don't think they have any preference for where they give birth or where they mate. Alrighty, let's move on. Very nice little elephant sighting there. Confiding cow until I told her she had pointy straight tusks. She didn't like that at all. Decided it was very insulting, and off she went. So I don't think anybody's found tracks of this young male leopard. Anyway, we may or may not be lucky. Right, let's go across to Steph, get an update from him. I'm going to pop around to the Arathusa waterhole.
So, VM busy showing you that there is some life around us at the moment. We just got to find whatever deposited that dung. VM, have a look here quickly. Sorry, folks, it's going to be a bit jarring. But what we've got is we've got two eagles flying in the distance and a roller that's busy escorting. I don't know what eagles they were. They flew over a little bit quick. It was just literally while I was trying. There goes a roller. There you got him rolling. Oh, just missed him. Here he goes again. Sometimes so difficult to see what we're seeing through the aperture of the lens, and it's just, what happened there was there were two eagles that took off, and a roller was busy dive bombing these two eagles as they were trying to get to a thermal. And obviously for eagles, they're big heavy birds, they need to flap their wings, get to a thermal, and the lighter roller had the height advantage and was using it to dive bomb those two birds. Pity we couldn't show you, but that was what was happening. But back to what we were saying, is that you got VM having a look at some fresh dung when you crossed over to us, and that is from a zebra. There are some zebras around here, we haven't seen any, but that literally is from this morning. And you caught me looking at this wonderful home that this spider has built inside this grass, and I couldn't quite see what spider it is, but what you can definitely see is the fact that this spider has taken this grass seed and, using goodness knows what strength, folded the grass inflorescence into itself and then stuck it together with web. And this spider is actually in there. I'll show you with this other grass where she's sitting. Right there. Alright, now I've just been asked a question. I have got sketchy comms at the moment, but I did get the fact that there's some question asked about what would happen if spiders had to cease to exist. What would happen? I think, to be honest, I think we'd probably be inundated with pests. Spiders play a vital role in controlling of insects. That is their primary function, is they control insects and insect pests. And there are literally thousands upon thousands of different types of spiders, literally thousands of each member of species of spider represented here in the bush, and they have a huge impact. I mean, it would be quite interesting to see if somebody's worked out exactly what the tonnage of insects are that spiders consume per year or per season, perhaps even per day, but it's got to be something astronomical. I think spiders are, not only are they wonderful things, but I think that they play a wonderful role in limiting insect pests for us, or insects that could become pests. Flies, for instance, grasshoppers, most of these animals are controlled by spiders. Locusts and crickets, whatever, I'm just busy thinking. The leopold just asked me an interesting question. Do I have more respect for spiders that hunt or spiders that sit in webs? Leopold, that's a good question, and I'm going to say that I probably respect them equally. Spiders that sit in webs fascinate me because of their manipulation of silk. Talking about that, I've got enough silk covering my eyes to weld them shut at the moment, but spiders that manipulate silk and build these fantastically shaped webs fascinate me because I don't understand how they do it. I understand how their bodies produce the silk, but how do they decide what silk goes where in this massively complex web? How do they do that with a brain that doesn't even exist? They just got this collection of nerves, basically. And then spiders that hunt fascinate me equally as much because of their ability to catch specific animals. Now, each prey species is influenced by a whole set of dynamics. It's influenced about where food is and where its home is and what the orientation of the sun is. And these little predators can actually predict what's going to happen and catch this specific prey. They're almost like they're keyed to it. And then you get other spiders, like jumping spiders, which hunt spiders. And once again, you've got two predators that are keyed to different things, that are basically, you know, they one outcompetes the other. Just for me, it's fascinating. So to answer your question, there, it's a little bit of both. I have respect for both, but for different reasons. I hope that answered your question there, Leopold. Nice question. I like questions that end up in a bit of discussion. Now, just to come back to VM's dung pile, this is not the same one that you were having a look at. This is a different one, but also from zebra. Now, zebra are similar to rhino and to a certain degree elephant and warthog, hindgut fermenters. And you can see there that very fibrousy piece of grass is not chewed particularly well. There are a lot of grasses that are fine here, but generally that's quite a fibrousy dung. And you can have a look at the amount of it as well. So dung that's not chewed, or grass that's not chewed very well, plus a large volume of dung, makes you think that this animal needs to eat a lot to keep going. And that's exactly what zebra do, is that they can utilize lots of very hardcore grasses that other animals can't. But to get enough nutrition to feed themselves, they've got to eat lots of it. Hindgut fermenting, something that really stands animals with that particular type of digestion well in winter time. All right, and on that note, and onto a much more better topic, James is standing by with something interesting for you.
Okay, there's a little bee eater, everybody. We've just stopped here to have a quick look at him sitting in the sun, but it seems we're right close to that buffalo carcass. It seems that there are lions moving in there. I can't hear exactly on the radio. Let's just move there. We're not far away, and I don't know which lions they are. I don't think they're the same two males. It's not too far from where we are now. Let's go and have a look. Just down in the drainage line here. Not sure. I've just heard on the radio that something's moving there. They said we can move in. So let's pop down there and have a squiz, Brian. What did you say? Just in the drainage here. A little difficult to get in there, so there'll be some scraping and thumping, but we can do it. I think it was down here, wasn't it, Brian? Yes, it was. Oh no, it's actually this way. Trying to listen to the radio, everybody, so if I do look like I'm A, distracted, and B, ignoring you, I promise I'm not. Oh, there we go. It's a tailless female. Let's go in, well, maybe we go in this way, hang on. I can see one lioness there. May well try and make our way around the other side, but we'll be able to get a view from in here. There's a whole pride of lions coming in here. tailless lionesses, the Salala pride. Three lionesses. So not the best view, everyone, but not bad. Look how pale she is. That's really interesting. There's the third one coming, young male. How cool is this? This was totally unexpected. Brian and I expected to find a couple of hyenas here. So there you can see they're a little bit nervous. All right. Okay, Imanyan. Okay, everybody, we're going to have to go back a little bit. These guys can't see properly. Hold on one sec. Sorry about this, everybody. Perhaps something has pushed over the Gauri repeater, just like the elephants have pushed over this marula tree. Our technical team is rushing around madly trying to fix it, and we'll be back with you as soon as we can. Sorry about this, everybody. Perhaps something has pushed over the Gauri repeater, just like the elephants have pushed over this marula tree. Our technical team is rushing around madly trying to fix it, and we'll be back with you as soon as we can. Sorry about this, everybody. Perhaps something has pushed over the Gauri repeater, just like the elephants have pushed over this marula tree. Our technical team is rushing around madly trying to fix it, and we'll be back with you as soon as we can. Sorry about this, everybody. Perhaps something has pushed over the Gauri repeater, just like the elephants have pushed over this marula tree. Our technical team is rushing around madly trying to fix it, and we'll be back with you as soon as we can. Sorry about this, everybody. Perhaps something has pushed over the Gauri repeater, just like the elephants have pushed over this marula tree. Our technical team is rushing around madly trying to fix it, and we'll be back with you as soon as we can. Sorry about this, everybody. Perhaps something has pushed over the Gauri repeater, just like the elephants have pushed over this marula tree. Our technical team is rushing around madly trying to fix it, and we'll be back with you as soon as we can. Okay, everybody, I think we've got a little bit of picture now. So there we are. Well, it's a really good picture from where I'm sitting. Two lionesses, one young male, feeding on this buffalo carcass. I'm not sure how much you heard last time we were live with them. Very lucky to have come in here and seen them. It's the two Salala lionesses and a young male from the same pride. They're seemingly out of territory and not basically where they should be. They don't really have an established territory, and they're kind of in the Styx Pride territory and the Nkuhuma Pride territory, and so they're looking a little bit nervous. And look at that one there. Look how amber her eyes are, like our friend from the Nkuhuma Pride. She's very pale though, and so easily identifiable. And the hyenas apparently had a go at this carcass this morning, but they have since absconded in the face, I think, of these, possibly of these lions. Very nice indeed to have an experience like this. I'm afraid my signal with the final control is so poor that for you to be able to send through a question here is going to be almost impossible. But you can try. In fact, what I'll do is I'll turn my phone on, and then Kirsten can just WhatsApp any questions you might have. That's going to be the best option, I think. I'll just find out if I've got some signal here. Yeah, Kirsty, I've got signal, so just WhatsApp through a question if there is one. Otherwise, let's just enjoy. Wonderful, Brian.
Wonderful.
Not a bad way to enjoy our day. There we go. There's the first one. Kirst, it's pointless talking to me, I'm afraid. I cannot hear you saying, but you can send WhatsApp. I will get those. Amazing, this. And look at the colours. I mean, I know it's a bit grim looking at the colours and appreciating the red death almost. but still wonderful to see them feeding. And I just love this winter vegetation with it's deep green in the drainage line areas, but away from it, gold, and of course now juxtaposed with the red of the blood. I did drive through a bit of mud on the way here, everyone. Brian, are you covered in mud?
No, thankfully.
I am covered in mud.
I'm sorry, James.
Well, thank you for your sympathy and care. I do appreciate it. It's noted. Right, I think we have a question coming through. Ah, yes, Kirsten McClellan Smith sent me a message. Question. Agri-girl. No, a girl. A girl, someone called a girl says, how hard is it to be a tailless lion? Well, I don't have personal experience, of course, of being a tailless lion, a girl. But interestingly, this lioness's mother, I used to know when I was a few years younger than I am now, and her mother didn't have a tail either. It's not genetic, it's but just coincidence that they've both sort of been eaten off by parasites. And so it's not difficult at all. They survive absolutely fine. And yeah, I mean, it might make a slight difference to their ability to communicate with their cubs as youngsters or with each other, but I really don't think that it affects their lives a great deal at all. Wonderful, wonderful sighting this. It really is. The light is perfect. And I believe the bushwalk has gone down, I'm afraid, so you're with us alone at the moment. Oh, my signal's getting a bit dodgy. Let me put my phone... Oh, no service now, so not sure we'll be getting any more questions. Anyway, I'm just going to quickly talk on the Game Drive radio. Because I know that there will be people trying to get into the sighting. So just excuse me one sec. No, in fact, I think we're okay. So these lions is apparently to chase off the hyenas. Stations, if you are looking to get into this lion sighting, I've got very poor comms unless you're very close by, so I will move out if there are people on standby to come in here. Just let me know when you're really close. What a joy. We've been so lucky with cats recently, me especially. I don't think I've had a cat-free drive for the last little while, which must be considered something of a bonus, I imagine. Let's just check the signal. Yeah, no, we've got no service on the cell phones either, I'm afraid, everyone. So, no questions. Just enjoy the view. Now, Brian, if you have any questions, of course, feel free to ask them, or indeed some comments.
Okay.
If you could just do them in a different accent or something like that, so that I could enjoy them. John in Missouri, perhaps. I just love her amber eyes. She really does have very amber eyes. We've got ourselves into the most perfect position here. Gorgeous kind of light filtering through the trees. We've got full view from the front. little bit grim, of course, especially if you happen to be the buffalo, but not too bad. Now, let's just try and assess what happened here, or let me just back up a bit and give you an idea of what happened here. The two timber males are basically males without territory at the moment, so they don't really have a fixed place where they're able to live, and that means that they will wander about the place. I think they were feeling a bit of pressure from the Majingalan coalition, and the Majingalan coalition seems to have come back into the area where they were around Londolozi, so they came up north to their own. Ooh, there we go. That's why lions have constantly got injuries on them. So the Matimbas killed these lions, killed this buffalo, I think, and then they ate it only for the extent probably of, they ate a little bit last night, at least yesterday morning, and then they disappeared yesterday afternoon, and then they came back and had a bit of a bite to eat last night, and then they left. We don't know why they left. I think it's simply because they're nervous. They don't want to be in one place at any one time. They're in very good condition, though. And then the hyenas came, and they couldn't believe their luck. They ate a whole lot of this. It wouldn't have been from our clan of hyenas. It would have probably been from the Arathusa / Elephant Plains clan of hyenas, very big clan. And then these 3 lionesses came in and chased off, or 2 lionesses and 1 young male, chased off the hyenas. They'll have melted off into the bushes around here somewhere. And you can see that they're looking pretty nervous. They're not eating with complete comfort. Especially the older one, that tailless lioness. She's looking around, keeping an eye out. And in the background you can maybe hear the elephants calling. Anyway, we're going to sit here for a little while. We've probably got another 5 or so minutes here before we'll have to move out for some of the other vehicles. And then we'll maybe get more communications with the final control. But at the moment, I'm afraid, I can hear nothing they say, and the phones are not working. So hopefully we still have signal with you. It might not be live, Brian. Would be a pity not to share this, wouldn't it?
Indeed. A travesty.
A travesty of epic proportions. I got a little bit from Kirsten there saying that we are live. Get that, Brian? It's a question from Alex in Dallas. Alex, I've got absolutely no idea what you want to know, I'm afraid. I'm sorry. Ooh. She seems to have found a bit of rotting bit there. How delightful, Brian. Very delightful indeed. I'm just going to get an idea now from the game drives as to who's coming in. See how she keeps looking up and around. Definitely a little bit nervous. But settling into it now as nothing has happened over the while they've been here. A bit grim. I mean, the smell, of course, is pretty bad. She's got very amber eyes. totally unaffected by the vehicles, of course. Go ahead. I can move out if there's no space. There's probably space here on the southern side as well. Very good view. Copy. When the next station wants to move in, please let me know. I'll move out. Yeah, this really is perfect. Anyway, don't know what these chaps are going to do. This is not the whole Salala Pride. I think there are a few more of them. There were certainly 3 young males at one stage. Where they've disappeared off to, I'm not really sure. Yeah, they all look a bit nervous. Okay, everyone, we've got about a minute left, and then we're going to have to pull out to make space for other vehicles. But we were very lucky. Just giving you the hairy eyeball there, Brian.
Mm-hmm.
That's an elephant. There's a huge elephant coming in here. That's what they're looking at. Big elephant bull. He's off to exactly where that lion's looking. Behind a big termite mound. You won't be able to see him. There he comes, Brian. You see him there? You just see his grey coat or his grey skin sort of shining through the bush there. There he's smelling. He can smell carcass now. He'll smell lions. And he won't like the smell of carcass or lions. I'm sure he's just, I don't know that he's coming to investigate. I think he's just walking on through. There are 2 other vehicles behind there, where the elephant is going. He's just giving a little head shake. You may have heard that. As he shook his head. Because he'll be smelling them now. Right, I can hear something coming through here from Final Control about the possibility of there being vultures in the area. Yes, we did see one vulture. I don't know who the question's from, so I'm sorry about that. There was a vulture as we drove in. But it seems to have moved off. Oh, there's the elephant. You can just see it moving back there. Let's see what happens. Coming towards the lions. Here it comes. Here it comes. How brilliant is this? This is unbelievable. This is amazing. Now, what we don't want is to get in the way of the elephant, of course, because he's irritated. But we're certainly not in his way now. Straight back to the carcass, because lions are always hungry, of course. Now, he's not happy. He's coming back towards them. we might also have to vacate fairly soon in order to avoid the attentions of this elephant, but he did go past the other two vehicles and had no problem. He's very angry. My heart is pounding. And just the older lioness, the one without the tail, is calling his bluff. She's saying, come on then. There she is. Look at the dust. Isn't that wonderful? And now he's moving off. You just see the moving, rustling of the trees there and the dust hanging in the air, the smell of carcass, and here come the lions back again. That is just fantastic. I'm just watching the elephant. I think he's moving off. And here comes the other one now. Brilliant. Right, Brian, I think we're probably going to have to move out. Guys, the radio comms are such that I can't hear what's going on. I don't know if there are other game drives trying to get into this area, so I think let's move out. We've had an absolutely amazing sighting. It's not going to get better than that. And so let's pull out and see what else we can find. Continue our hunt for Sindile, the male leopard. Phew. How's that, Brian?
That was fantastic. That was spectacular.
It was absolutely astounding. Watch your heads, everybody. Right, I'll show you where I picked up the mud on my person as we came through. Alrighty then. I don't know what's going on. Where's my phone? It's okay. I've got all my kit, I've got my glove. Try and get back through here. I don't need that anymore. I have to start shedding layers, Brian. That's some very okay. Down we go. Right, hold on everybody. We're going to have to make a little bit of a buzz through here once Brian's fixed the aerial straight. You tell me when, Brian.
I'm ready.
Okay, hold on tight everyone. There's a lot of mucky muck going through there. That was actually much easier and windy the other day because the suspension's a bit softer and the tyres I think are softer. I suppose also, you know, more and more vehicles have gone through there to see the lions, and so it's probably become a little mired and deep. Right, Kirsten, why don't you attempt to speak with me again? I'll let you know if I can hear you. I do copy you, Kirsten, but about 2 out of 5. Anyway, how the day has brightened up. No, Kirsty, I'm afraid that's a waste of time. I know Gillian York has had a question. What on earth she's asked, I couldn't begin to tell you, I'm afraid. What we'll do is we'll turn down to the south and then we'll start heading back towards the east, and then we'll get a better idea of what's going on. But there's a vulture. We had a question about a vulture from an unknown entity somewhere in the universe. And there is a vulture, a white-backed vulture. And Brian, the elephant is off to the left there. You may just be able to catch him disappearing off through the trees. You might be unsighted, actually.
Yeah, I can't. Oh, there he is.
There, you got him. Just miles away, you can see him wandering off. That was so spectacular. So spectacular. Anyway, one does get that feeling that all is right with the world, not with the radios, of course, but with the world. So yes, a few vultures, but now, I mean, there are a number of reasons that there are not so many vultures around here. And the reason for that is that the carcass is hidden under the trees, and vultures, unlike the New World vultures, so the vultures of the Americas, in this area they find kills with their eyes. They don't use their noses like many of the storks, which are actually more closely related to New World vultures than our vultures are. They find carcasses with smell, and especially over those forested areas of the Amazon, for example, you can't see anything. But out here, the vultures find almost exclusively with sight, and so that's why there aren't more of them there. One or two of them would have seen it as they sort of took off, and then they'd have landed again. But those soaring vultures wouldn't have seen anything there. Kirst, I'm afraid, waste of time trying to talk to you at the moment. I will try and get into some better signal area as soon as possible. This is the western boundary of Aratuza now. We'll turn south here and then immediately east as soon as we can, and we should then get better comms with the final control. Check my phone, see if there's any signal. Oh, we got... Yes, oh, Mick in Dallas. Why do lions lick the meat? That's very nice. Right, Malik, sorry about that. I'm hoping things will improve from here. Malik, so they lick the fur so that they can expose the skin and get their teeth. They all lick the fur because the fur, I believe, is a very important form of roughage that they get. You've seen dogs and cats chewing on grass, I'm sure. Lions sometimes do the same thing, and I think hair, to a large extent, plays. Totally, I mean, hair is almost devoid of anything that they can digest, but I'm sure it helps the digestive system to move. So that's one of the other reasons that they do a little bit of licking of the fur there. The other reason is just to clean off. So, I mean, they've got that thick layer of sort of leathery skin that the buffalo have. It's probably about that thick, which is what, Brian? About half a centimetre, so about a fifth of an inch. And it's not very nutritious either unless you're a hyena, and so they'll lick that to get the meat, to get the sinew, and to get the last bits of sort of muscle off the skin, and that will help them, or that will be very tasty to them. Okay, next question, here we go. Gillian York, when will he get his full mane? I think that male is probably about 2.5 years old, Gilly, and you know, we've been looking, we've got some really nice examples now of lion manes. We had that youngster there, maybe 2.5 to 3 years old. We've seen the Birminghams lately. They're pushing 5 and 6. You know, but I think they're not all the same age. So let's say 5 or 6. And then we had the Matimbas. 10 up to 11 years old, almost, yeah, between 11 years old and 12 years old. Yesterday, we saw the Matimbas. And they, of course, have got the most full manes. And so the manes continue to develop throughout their years. They get to about their maximum mass between 8 and 10 years, but the mane continues to develop. And I've seen a 15-year-old lion, astoundingly old for this area and in astoundingly good condition. And he had kind of a middle parting down the back of his head, because his head got so long it didn't stand up anymore. So there's no real time that a mane will get as full as possible. It's like a human beard, where it will grow until the days that we pop our clogs, as they say. So we're just going to see if we can find a few more tracks around here. Otherwise we'll head back towards the east. We are heading east, as is obvious by the risen sun into which we are heading. Thank you, Brian, for that. That was very kind of you. You did that by instinct, didn't you? Well done. Brian just covered my bald spot there. Steph apparently is up and running. I don't think he's actually running. That's just a figure of speech. Let's go and find out what he's looking for.
Absolutely, definitely not running. That is the one thing that we don't try and do here as much as possible. But we took the liberty while we were off air and fixing the little gremlin in the backpack to come and find the drag mark that I told you we were going to come and have a look for this morning, a little bit earlier in the show. Well, we found the drag mark. This is the drag mark. Doesn't look like much except for some ruts that you can see in the sand. And basically what it is an impala that Karula killed not last night, the night before, and which was stolen by some hyena and dragged. And these drag marks is what us as field guides love finding. It gives you this little electric thrill in your body, and it's because it generally means that there's a kill around. Now you can see this particular drag mark has been dragged underneath the leaves here. And how I'm seeing that is, have a look at how flat these grasses are. Grass is flat and pointing in one direction. And it's come through the trees. Obviously VM's aerial can't go through the trees, so he's going to walk around the tree. I'm going to walk on the drag mark here. And it was probably dragged all this way by a hyena. Now why a hyena drag these kills away from where they were killed is because when something dies it makes a noise. Not only does it make a noise, but that noise attracts all predators in the area. Hyenas are notoriously greedy. They're going to take that kill, they want to get it for themselves. So what they do is they pick it up and they drag and run away with it. Now James has quickly got an elephant bull to show you, a huge elephant bull that's going to give us time to decipher this trail for you.
So everyone, this is the same elephant bull that we saw earlier, and he was the one that chased the elephants, at least the lions. He's the same one that we saw initially earlier today. He's the same one that left his scent all over the place. He's not nasty to cars at all, but he started coming down the road to us, so I just wanted to move out of the way to give him the opportunity to move along the road. But quite interestingly, he got a fright from the noise of the car and moved off the road, so I feel a little bit bad that we moved. But I did put us in the shade, Brian, didn't I? Yeah. He's pretty calm and pretty chilled out. He just saw us kind of standing in his path and he started shaking his head a little bit. I'm going to move forward and then turn. Nature's darling, I think you've just asked a question about Asiatic elephants in this area. Is that correct, Kirsty? Captured. Oh, if captured elephants were released, would they survive? It depends entirely on their experience. If they'd been captured as youngsters, very small youngsters, I think it's unlikely that they would survive very comfortably. They could survive, but they could fall prey to predators if they were very young. He's having a bit of a go at this marula tree. This is going to be quite interesting. Oh, I think he might break that bough. Look at the tree shaking there. Nature's darling. So if you released a big bull like this into a different area, if you caught him and then released him, he'd be absolutely fine. And certainly there are many, many experiments, or not experiments, examples of elephants being released into reserves where they have, they're normally taken out of places like this and released into other reserves, and they're absolutely fine. But any animal that is removed from the wild is almost universally difficult to reintegrate into the wild, especially if they were born in captivity. So the more experience they have, the better. I think in a social species like elephants, which are not particularly nasty to each other, by default, if there was, say, you released a cow and a youngster, they may well be adopted by a herd who would look after them. Oh, please don't push it over. Please don't push that tree over. I will shout at you. Now, this is one of those questions, everybody, you're going to say to me. If I start shouting at him, you're going to say, but you say you don't interfere. Well, which is true, but it's sometimes very difficult not to. And this is a little bit like watching a hyena kind of approach a leopard, knowing that it will do harm if it gets hold of the leopard. The temptation is to warn the leopard. There you go, you can break that little branch off. That's it. That's fine. But leave the tree intact, please. And of course, there's nothing unnatural about what he's doing. Look at him, he's cross now. He's filled with testosterone. His whole body is coursing with testosterone. He needs an outlet for that. And he's taking it out on the tree and scratching his chin at the same time. This is so fantastic. He's just feeling frustrated, A musk bull elephant is just 6 tons of frustration. I find it difficult to explain. I think many men will know exactly what I mean when you just, you're a bit angry, you're a bit ornery, and things are just not quite going your way, and the slightest thing will set your temper off, and that's basically how this elephant feels. He's trying to find a herd where he can kind of, not to put too fine a point on it, I think mating would definitely help him feel a lot better about things, but it's difficult. Not all the cows are in estrus. They'll only mate when they're in estrus, and they have to allow him to mate because of the mechanics of how it happens with elephants. She has to really kind of allow it. Now there's a herd of zebra behind him, which you can just see there, walking through the woodland. Let's see how he reacts to them. I'm still in awe at that incredible sighting we had with the lions of this elephant chasing them off, and the light filtering through those trees as the dust began to settle as he moved off was absolutely spectacular. And I hope we managed to get that across to you. So picking something to eat here, and you can see those zebras, they're fast, and there's some impala there as well, somewhere knocking about. They are wary of him. They're much faster than him, but they saw his direction and they kind of thought, okay, guys, let's not push this, let's just move out the way a bit. I wonder if they can tell if he's in must or not. I wonder if they associate the smell of his dripping urine with a heightened sense of irritation, if you like. Many will tell you that it's aggression, that an elephant bull in must is aggressive. I personally detest that term because it implies that he's kind of angry for no reason. He's just more easily irritated. But he has not been in the slightest bit aggressive with us. Brilliant. Okay, let's turn around and continue in the way that we were going. I don't want to continue the way we are going because we will lose communications again. We will just do a quick about turn. Now, Steph has found something else, something that I see being deposited on a regular basis.
We managed to decipher the puzzle of where this impala went, and basically what you're looking at is what's left of this particular impala. This Karula spent a lot of energy killing, and then it was just stolen by those nasty hyenas, and basically this impala was peeled. I can't think of any other way to describe it. It contains absolutely no bones whatsoever, and the meat has completely been licked off. Have a look at that. Now, it's not uncommon for impala to be peeled by a hyena. Their jaws are strong enough to separate the skin from the meat below, and that's what's happening. This, you're looking at the bottom of the skin. This would have been attached by connective tissue to the muscles, and here is the top. This is now the top part. Not quite gonna make a bathroom rug or a throw for my bedroom. It is quite smelly at the moment.
Make a nice underpants.
VM says it'll make a nice pair of underpants for him. Where that
Like
came
Tarzan.
from? Like Tarzan. Yes. Very funny. But there we go. That's the skin. There are some fragments of bone lying around. I've got one or two here that I've seen now, of course, because I want to show you they are not here at all. Ah, there we go. Here's a piece of bone. There's bone with the marrow that's been licked out. There's another piece of bone. There's another piece of bone, all from this impala. So what happened was the hyena would have peeled the impala and eaten basically everything at leisure, even licking out the marrow. So that's exactly what happened here. So hyena, easy meal. All the hyena had to do was listen. He would have heard the kill, or he would have smelt the carcass, run in, stolen the kill from Karula, and then dragged it probably about 500 or 600 yards to consume it at leisure in this particular place. And I would imagine that this would have happened at night time, because it's a fairly open area, this.
Early in the morning.
So early in the morning, VM says that's what had happened. Unfortunately, I wasn't on the property, but VM says early in the morning, sun would have just been coming up, or would have been just pre-dawn, nice and open, as you can see, and that would have allowed this particular hyena to feed in the comfort of knowing that nothing could really sneak up on him. Would have finished it all and then carried on with the day. So that's that. So at least we managed to unravel the puzzle for you. Now you'll notice I'm using a stick to touch this carcass. I don't touch carcasses with my hands. It's a bad practice to get into out here. We actually don't know why this impala died. We can only guess that it died because Karula was choking the life out of it, but it may have succumbed to some other type of disease. In the dry period like we've got now, anthrax is a real problem out here. And I'm not saying that to scare anybody. We're not in danger of dying over here right away. Anthrax is a very normal part of the ecosystem out here. And in dry periods, animals pick up anthrax in drying up pans, and they can die. And predators pick it up. They're not as susceptible to it. So that's that. I'm glad we found it, unraveled that puzzle of a drag mark, and got to show you exactly what happens post-stealing, basically. Now come on, let's go and have a look at what's happening in this valley here. The Samsung's just asked if we use the sun when we're tracking animals. No, I can't say that I do. What we do definitely use is use wind. So when you're tracking animals, you do keep wind direction absolutely in consideration. And to do that, you use an ash bag. You can use grass or kick dust or pick up some sand, but we use a little ash bag. As you can see, it's a very, very effective way. Even the lightest of breezes.
Oh, my camera's full of ash.
Oh, sorry, I've just dusted VM. As you can see, even in the lightest of breezes, the ash falling out of the sock will give you a direction of breeze. Do we take it into 100% consideration when you're tracking something? No. So absolutely, when the animal's tracks are very fresh, you will take the wind direction into consideration. But when you're tracking an animal, it doesn't matter where the wind's blowing, the primary focus is actually tracking, but not the sun. Unless, of course, it's getting dark and you need to get back, then we'll use the sun. You don't want to be out here in the bush when the sun is down. So I suppose, actually, I'll rescind what I said and I'll say, yes, the sun is, you do take it into consideration. You're not going to track first thing in the morning, and you're absolutely not going to track going into the dark. All right. And now James has an update for you while we carry on looking for something interesting in this valley.
The only update I have at the moment, everyone, is that I'm taking my jacket off because it's a little bit hot. But what I did want to say to you was that I completely misheard the final control when we crossed over to Steph, and I believe I linked by saying that Steph's found something. Ooh. I linked by saying that Steph has found something that I see deposited all the time. I don't see impala carcasses deposited all the time. I thought that Kirsty had said something about an impala midden, and of course it is my lot in life to watch animals relieving themselves. So that just clears that up for you, because I'm sure you were desperately worried about what I meant. Okay, on we go. It has warmed up quite nicely. I will have to, of course, remove my undershirt at some stage, but I won't do that live. That will be offensive. You'll be able to see hairy belly in human form. Now, no tracks of this young male leopard, so we're going to do a little exploration of the Aratuza International Airport and see if he hasn't popped out here, because this is apparently, this is where the ping came from. There's the giraffe, Brian. It's not the best giraffe sighting we've ever had, but it is a sighting. There we go, everybody. Isn't that amazing? Fantastic giraffe sighting. Feet. Super zoom his feet, Brian.
Super zoom his feet, huh?
Whoa!
Look at that.
Look at that, everyone.
Giraffe feet.
Giraffe feet sighting. That's the best giraffe foot sighting I've had backlit from this distance ever. Phew. The universe hath smiled upon us generously. Okay, I'm afraid that's a really rubbish giraffe sighting, everyone. Let's carry on. Alrighty, we're going to go to the southern end of the airstrip now. Just watch the road carefully for any signs. Of course, Sandile and Shadow used to lurk about in these thickets next to the airstrip quite regularly. Very clever place for a leopard to live, because of course in the evening a lot of antelope will come out onto the open area that is the airstrip, and that just gives them some space to see what wants to come and eat them. And in this case it was Shadow and Sandile. There is there. Very nice sighting there of a, oh, there are two birds here. But let's look at that one first. That's the crowned lapwing. And the crowned lapwing, of course, the ubiquitous bird of the open areas and open plains, running around trying to catch insects. Oh. That's absolutely unbelievable. Did you see that, Brian? No. The bird just went to the loo. Quite incredible. He's got a lovely call. It's so indicative of wild areas, and you know, they quite often live in sort of city parks. And they're one of those little touches of wilderness that you get in our urban settlements. And the most interesting thing about a crowned lapwing, of course, is that he is totally water independent. And that's probably one of the reasons you see him so often. He's got a special gland just below, or just above his nose, on that red beak, and it's a salt gland, and it allows him to excrete salt far more effectively than just his kidneys can. He's not very good at hitting his mark, is he, Brian? Tries to run out of your frame very often. Now, the other bird that I saw here, Brian, I don't know if you can see him there. There's one just going past that golden piece of fallen leaf, and he's running. Can you see the little sort of kind of goldy piece of leaf? There he is, well spotted. That is a pipit, everyone. Now, a pipit for the non-birder is likely to anaesthetize you with its complete boringness, because it is so boring in colour. But to those who are birders, a pipit is a good addition to a list. And I know, Erin, you were sitting on about 71 birds yesterday. Or maybe the African pipit is another addition. Not a particularly memorable one, but an addition nevertheless. Oh, Jester, what a very good question. You want to know why it is that birds don't pee? Well, I'm something of an expert of animals excreting in front of me, and so I'll tell you. They do pee, but they pee and they poo at the same time. They don't have a urethra and, well, a rectum, not to put too fine a point on it. They don't have them as separate openings. They've only got one opening. It's called a cloaca. And so the urinary tract and the end of the digestive tract end up in the same hole and comes out together. Now, when you look at a bird's dung or a reptile's dung, you often find that little white patch with sort of the brownish muck. This is a disgusting discussion, but it must be had. And that white patch is the uric acid crystals that form in urine, and it would form in your own urine eventually. But that's the urine, and it's so liquid because the urine is then mixed in with all of that. And that's why you don't ever see a bird or a reptile having a pee. I don't think fish do either, actually, or amphibians. I think we may, as mammals, might be the only ones who have that sort of double opening. Very nice, Brian. Did you enjoy your pipit sighting?
I did.
Were you overwhelmed with a sense of joy?
I was.
Yes. Wonderment.
Or with the savagery of it.
And the savagery, awe-inspiring savagery. Ooh. Hang on 1 second, Kirsten. Unless Stefan's got something that's going to run away, let's just have a quick look at this giraffe, which is a much better sighting than the legs we saw earlier. There she is. This is giraffe. Now, I've been doing a little bit of research into skeletons since Brian and I found Nigel the Nyala. If you didn't see Nigel the Nyala, don't worry about it, but basically he was a Nyala that was killed by a male leopard and stolen by lions, but his spinal column was almost intact. So I did a bit of reading up about the spinal column, and the interesting thing about the spinal column of all mammals, of course, is that the neck vertebra, they're always 7. And in the case of the giraffe, the first two, C1 and C2, that's called cervical 1 and cervical 2, and they're the two first vertebrae, one of which articulates with the head, and the other articulates, well, with itself, basically. But in a giraffe, where if you lift your head back now, you can basically turn your head back about 90 degrees. You watch that giraffe's head. The giraffe can move its head 180 degrees, and that's because the first joint, the axis joint, or the atlas joint, sorry, I'm getting this mixed up now, axis joint, which is the joint that joins the skull to the neck, is able to bend at 180 degrees. See how he effortlessly kind of extends his head like that. That's because that joint is so much more flexible than it would be on any other animal just about. And eating cambretum, of course, which is not a particularly delicious thing to eat, they are full of tannins. Leopold, we haven't heard from you for some time. I hope that you were well. And you asked the interesting question that I don't know I have the answer to. How do round ears compare with pointy ears in functionality? Well, what a very good question. I don't know. I couldn't begin to tell you. Safe to say that animals that use their ears more extensively than others seem to have round ears. So let's look at wild dogs, or kudu, for example. They tend to have much more rounded ears, unlike these pointy ones here. And of course the giraffe does hear very well, but a giraffe's main defensive mechanism is the fact that he's taller than everything else, but like Brian, and so he is able to look, or she is able to look as a defensive strategy rather than have to hear. So maybe that's got something to do with it. Could be. Potentially, maybe, Brian. So you don't see many animals eating these red bush willow trees, and that's why I think there's so many of them around. They obviously have very effective sort of chemical defensive methods. Michelle, you've noticed the patch on her neck. That patch on her neck is something that happens to all giraffe. It's quite a good way of aging them. As the worse it is, the older they are. It's something called parafilaria, which is a parasite that grows on the skin of giraffe, basically. It's an ectoparasite. It doesn't seem to harm them at all, but the older they get, the more extensive those patches become. So it's called parafilaria. I don't think she's very old. I don't think she's a youngster. Oh, a question from someone called Green Hornet. Hello, Green Hornet. You say, do giraffe break their necks when they fight with each other? Green Hornet, they do not break their necks when they fight with each other. I've no doubt there's at least one or two examples in history of that happening. I've never heard of it happening. Their necks are particularly strong, and I mean the vertebrae are enormous. So they're the same number of cervical vertebrae in that animal as there are in your own neck, and indeed in the neck of a elephant shrew. And so they're very large, they're very long, and they're very strongly held together by ligaments, and of course those are then supported by muscles and tendons, and so you'll find that to break a giraffe's neck is quite difficult. And even when they fall over, they seldom break their necks, but they do struggle to get back up again. Brian, I don't know if are you at full zoom? If you zoom in on the neck there's an inchworm. It's fallen off now. It was hanging from her. She clearly disturbed it from the tree. Oh, it's gone. Justin, I think your question is you want to know how they're able to eat with their necks fully extended into the ear. Is that correct, Kirsty? Feet.
With their feet.
Oh, sleep. Oh, there we go. Okay. Right, they're able to sleep with their necks in the air because, much like many animals, they just, they can relax in such a way that the joints in the neck, and I don't know the exact mechanism of this, they don't have to. Basically what happens is when you fall asleep, your nervous system will stop functioning in those muscles that aren't sort of automatically operated. And in an animal like this, or a horse which sleeps standing up, many animals which sleep standing up. Those muscles which in you are switched off when you lie down, when you pass out, are not switched off. The neurological pathways that make the muscles fire in an animal like this allow it to rest with its head held up. And I think you'll also find that the held at a certain angle, the vertebra of the neck probably rest with very little muscle power having to hold them up. The giraffe keeps looking behind us, and I keep hoping that there's going to be sight of a leopard with a collar around his neck, but I don't see anything. Right, Stefan Winterboer, I'm talking to the giraffe now, has got something very interesting to tell everybody, so let's go across to him. He wants to show you a stick insect.
It's only when you come down to this particular level that you realize exactly what it is that's going on down here. We just want to show you, have a look at what's in this grass that we've found. We took a little experiment and literally sat down where we were, and in this grass clump was this fantastic creature. He looks exactly like the clump of grass he's sitting on. Can you all see it? It's a grasshopper. And here is the tip of his head, there, with some antennae that look like grass stalks. There's his eye. This particular species have got a very elongated head. There's the mouth there. Here's one back leg, this is a joint. Here's the one, that's the thigh, that's the knee. And then hidden in the grass all the way to here is the abdomen. But have a look at how closely matched even the shades of pink on the head are to these shades of pink in this particular grass. Have a look at this grass, the edge there is the same shade of pink as you're now finding on this particular grasshopper. These browns and yellows and what's left of the green, at least anyway. Isn't that incredible? These long, elongated compound eyes, and then these mouth parts. And now I've been thinking, why would the grasshopper have such an elongated head? And the obvious question is, or the obvious answer is, of course, to make him look as much like a grass stalk as possible, allowing his mouth to carry on eating while the top of his body stays still. So his mouth can be furiously busy feeding on grass, right there, with the top of his body looking dead still. It's just another one of these brilliant sort of evolutionary adaptations to staying hidden. Once again, predators of insects like this react to movement, and as long as he's keeping still, he won't be seen, and then he won't be preyed upon. But he might as well have his mouth on the bottom of his body that can be eating grass while the top of him stays hidden. Amazing, hey? Another thing that I found while it's been sitting right underneath my nose here is the fact that, have a look at this leaf. This leaf has been almost entirely mined by some insect. You can see that all the cellulose between the leaf's veins has been eaten, and all that they've left is the hard veins where all the leaves' fluids used to run. Now, of course, leaves are where photosynthesis happens, and photosynthesis is the way that the plant feeds itself. Photosynthesis turns sunlight into energy or sugars using chlorophyll, and it then uses the leaf, which has these things called stomata on them, to suck water up from the roots. So the leaves do two things. One is that they house the cell structure that houses chlorophyll and turns sunlight into water. The next is they have these little structures on them called stomata, which basically bleed water. Water is very sticky at a chemical level. Sun evaporates the water, the next drop comes into the stomata, and so the tree, at the same time, this leaf, at the same time, pushes sugars down the tree. It is also sucking water and minerals up and feeding itself. But because of that, there's quite a lot of things going on in a plant cell, and because of that, they are very valuable from a nutrition point of view. And you can see that some brilliant insect has mined every last cell inside this leaf and just left the veins, the venation, the network of arteries and, or basically arterioles if it were a human or an animal. Have a look how fine that is. Can you see that over here? I don't know how tight you can get. Isn't that amazing? Left that roadmap for us to see. It gives you a new idea of what's going on in these leaves. I'll put a whole leaf next to it so that you can see what one looked like. That is what one looked like before it was mined. Crazy, eh? All that's going on in that leaf. I think it's just brilliant. All right. We'll leave this terrified grasshopper to his day in his grass pile, and we're going to go sit down next to another grass pile and see what we can go and pick out for you. What a brilliant exercise. Very interesting. Siberia's just asked a nice question. Would that grasshopper change color like a chameleon? No, I don't think so, Siberia. I haven't seen grasshoppers change color. I think that those grasshoppers, in their adult form like that was, they're actually born that way. They're born to walk from grass clump to grass clump, staying as hidden as what they can. That's what I think, at least anyway. All right. Now that I've stuck my head up a bit, it's always a good thing to scan the bush in front of you. Yeah, Jessica's just asked me if it's true, if I had to stand on a cockroach, that they immediately lay their eggs. I'm going to have to say that that's true, and the only way that I know that is because of the inquisitive nature of my mind. I heard exactly the same rumor when I was a little boy, and I just couldn't help but stand on a cockroach to see if an egg casing came out. Not in every instance, but definitely on a few, an egg case or something white, an encapsulated white capsule, was ejected from the back of the cockroach. And it could very well be that it's an egg case. Whether or not that was as a result of 40 at that time, probably 40 or 50 pounds of human jumping on it, I'm not too sure. I don't think that those egg cases will in actual fact hatch. But yeah, good question. Yes, is the answer to your question. Whether or not those eggs are fertile, or whether or not those eggs will actually hatch into new cockroaches, I can't really say. I don't think so. I doubt it. Insects need to be quite particular about where they lay their eggs and what time they lay their eggs and where they lay their eggs on. It seems like this particular patch, although quite empty, has a lot of animal movement on. We've got a lot of different dungs here from different animals. We've got impala and elephant, lots of elephant. In actual fact, I think on more than one occasion we've actually seen elephant feeding in this area. We've got even, it looks like hippo. Yeah, it is hippo. This is a hippopotamus. You can see relatively fresh hippopotamus. I would say probably not from last night, from the night before last. And I know that it's hippo because it's sprayed up on the bushes here. Have a look at the way that it's sprayed up here. Caught even in these areas here. In an area you wouldn't normally associate there to be hippo. This is a hippopotamus, quite strong smelling. Must be honest, now that I've got my face quite close to it. And you can see that they've sprayed it up to about, I'm kneeling down now, you can see that they've sprayed it up to about my head level, which would be at about the level of the tail. They would have walked and wagged their paddle-like tail quite vigorously as they were defecating, and that would then spray the bush and the surrounding bush with dung as he carried on feeding. Not much, unfortunately, for hippo. As you can see, the grass is looking pretty denuded here. Alrighty, we've got some elephant dung here. But the fact that we've only got dung here and not much else would lead me to send you over to James for an update on what he's got, rather than look at any more of this with us.
So we made it to the bottom of the airstrip and we turned round. We're now going north again. And we're just still trying to find tracks of our old pal Sandile. Many elephant tracks around here. And we did see a baby giraffe while you were gone, but he went off absconding into the bushes to get away from us. And then Brian said, "Oh, what's that?" And I stopped and I saw exactly what he was looking at, and it looked like a leopard posing mid-stride, and it was a log.
I was highly disappointed.
Yes, Brian was very cross. But he didn't say a bad word, did you, Brian?
No.
No.
I went,
Well done. Morning, Gloria. I have to agree with you completely. You say it's been such an excellent week for big cats. It's been an astonishingly good week for big cats. Really, really special. And, I mean, long may that luck last. We know it won't, but we hope that we'll ride it for as long as it does. And you say even seeing Sandile tracks would be fantastic. Yeah, I agree. Haven't seen them yet, though. Anyway, we're going to make our way but sort of slowly back towards the east, towards Djuma. Back along the routes that we used to know that he would hang out on. Maybe his mum has popped out of Hoffman's. Maybe she's finished eating her impala that she was eating there the other day. With Tingana, warthog, sorry. Very. Leopold, nice one about impala and their eating or drinking, not impala, predators, and their eating or drinking of their prey's blood. You know, most of the predators out here are independent of water, and that's because of the amount of water that there is in any kind of flesh. And so while lions and leopards will readily drink if they can, they don't have to all the time, and that's because they have so much of the water that they get from their prey, and a large amount of that water will be held in the blood. So yes, they will absolutely drink it. Sounds a little grim, doesn't it, Brian? Vampires. Macabre. This is where they used to lurk. Sandile in those halcyon days of his childhood when he and his mummy would wander about here eating impala, sometimes duiker, sometimes steenbok for a bit of variety in these thickets. And Wendy in Nebraska, of course, this is what I've been hoping fervently for, but whether indeed it will happen, I cannot tell you. Wendy, you say you're sure that he will recognize me, because when his mother left him for, I think it was 2 weeks at one stage, he spent time, or I spent time with him. Well, I think we all did. And my fervent, completely anthropomorphic hope is that he will recognize me fondly. Wait there, everyone. Don't move, Brian. I don't know what I thought I saw. Well, I do. I thought I saw a leopard track. There's nothing remotely resembling a leopard track on the road here. So I don't know. It's all just it's sort of psychological. I've been talking about it so much. So in all seriousness, I don't know if these leopards would recognize us. It's really difficult to say. We'd like to think that they would, but I don't know. You know, we recognize each other as human beings because I'm going to come back to the sighting, to my conversation. Steph has found something that may survive the apocalypse.
Just going to open on it. Now we've managed to find, and it is quite fortuitous this, but we've managed to find a cockroach for you to have a look at. And this is specifically to Jessica, who wanted to know if you stand on a cockroach, does the egg come out? She's heard of it. And to which I replied, I have actually stood on cockroaches and they have laid an egg. We're not going to stand on this one, though, to see if an egg comes out. But what you are focused on there is where the egg would come out. That is the back end of the cockroach there. And they are some of the most remarkable insects on the face of the planet. They can apparently withstand quite high levels of radiation. They can eat almost anything. They're detritivores, so they of course live very close to humans. Being detritivores, meaning they eat detritus. They live on almost anything. Now this one we found underneath a stump for you. And have a look at those nice tiger stripes almost on its back. Those very spiked hind legs, which it will use for climbing and for jumping. And it is nocturnal, and they will scurry about in the undergrowth eating basically dead things and dead vegetation, not dead animals, dead vegetation and fungus, and trying not to get eaten. Soft-bodied. Isn't that just amazing? And quite lucky for us to find it. I must be honest with you, Jessica. It was a lucky find. You don't find cockroaches that often out here. The amount of scorpion out here and the amount of solifuge absolutely stops them from being used. So we're going to give him a house again. I'm going to put a stump back onto him. Little branch, keep him hidden. And that way, any prying eyes, she can carry on with her nap and come out again tonight. Now this is a big peltiforum, and just to finish off our grasshopper thing from just now, we've got another grasshopper here. This one now obviously keyed specifically to green grass and specifically to peltiforums. Right there, Viam, at the end of my finger, is a grasshopper that is not looking like a grass, but looks every bit like the leaves on this peltiforum. Now Siberia Zumi is wanting to know if they change colors. And Siberia, no, they don't change colors, but you can have a look. We're just battling to find him. I'm going to put my finger there again for Viam. Right at the end of my finger. You see him? And now his abdomen is exactly like these compound leaves. I'm going to just get a piece of grass so that I can use it as a pointer for you. And then we'll try again. It was a little bit difficult for you to see that one. But now, of course, I've now got to try and find it. Oh, there we go. Right there. There's his head. And there's his abdomen, the end of it. He's only a one-legged grasshopper. A unileg of sorts. His other one has been lost in a fight or got stuck in a branch and he's shed it. So there's his head. And what's amazing is that those stripes on his abdomen are almost identical to the stripes that you'll find on these leaves. I don't know. A surprise around every bush that we turn over here. I mean, it's actually quite incredible. When you think about the fact that there's not much here. I mean, it's dry and it's dead and it doesn't look like anything, but the second you go down to the eye level, you start picking out all these wondrous things. Now, we're coming to the end of this drainage line here, which I want to try and show you. I think we've got a place where some buffalo have spent the night. We've got some buffalo close by. You can see here, have a look. This is the urine mark of the buffalo. He's had a wee here. And it's still wet. And you can see that the tracks, here's where he stood. This is the back of his track. And then he moved over a little bit. And he delivered some of his dung here. But you can see that this is not the freshest of dungs. It's got a little bit of a skin on the top. And that shows that it is already chilled. So I would say it's probably from early last night. Definitely not from right now. Although, what you don't want to do is take that for granted that there's no buffalo here. It's fairly fresh, fairly fresh. Buffalo tend to spend the evenings lying up in areas like this where they can reverse their bums into a bush. So if the buffalo was attacked by a lion, he'd reverse his bum into this bush, and then he'd be able to protect himself with his horns, rushing out at lion, hooking the lions with his horns, and keeping his hind quarters into this bush right here. And this is how he would have protected himself, keeping front forward with the horns, and then reversed into these bushes and charging out and charging back again. That's what he would have done. That's why he chose this place to sleep in. Lovely. Picture it in my mind with all the tracks around here. All right, I've got very, very sketchy radio communications in this particular area, so you might go from myself to James while we're busy walking around here. I'm just preempting it at the moment. We're going to cross through and hopefully we'll get some better radio signal, and while we're doing it, they might send you through to James. Otherwise, I'll keep on talking until I hear elsewise, and we can carry on down here and see what exciting things we can find for you inside this drainage line.
Well, everybody, this birthday had at least this elephant had 4 birthdays during the course of that link. It is a floppy-eared youngster that does not look to me to be in great condition. The floppy ear, I think, is a result of cartilage damage to the ear, which could be either genetic or just part of its, or may have damaged it while living. And I say not in great condition, because if you look at him, or her, I think it's a him, just the spinal column is sticking out, the shoulders are sticking out, you can see the scapula there sticking out. And I think that's just an indication that he's not in such great nutritional state, so maybe there's some form of sickness or disease. But it's difficult to say. Very relaxed he is. Now, floppy ear, of course, shouldn't affect his life. He should be absolutely fine with an ear like that. But I think many of the elephants are going to struggle going forward with the environmental conditions of dryness that are sure to persist for the next little while. Anyway, he's being very confiding with us. There's the radio dropping on the floor, don't worry. And he did turn towards us at one stage and looked like he was a little bit cross, but he's now absolutely fine. Jilly in New York, that's a very nice, it's not New York, in York, the old version, there in North Country of England. You want to know if there's any kind of effect or any plant out here that has the effect of catnip on animals. So we know that catnip makes cats go crazy. I haven't seen a plant that makes animals do that. Elephants, of course, favor various things like marula fruits. They go ballistic for them. But that's something they can eat, you know. It's not something that just sort of makes them go crazy. So I'm going to say no, Jilly, but I don't know for sure. This particular plant that's being eaten is the variable bush willow, and they like to eat variable bush willows, do these elephants, much more so than the tree that the giraffe was eating, which is the red bush willow. I think that's quite interesting. Don't you, Brian? Mm-hmm. now coming out to see us. That's marvellous. As he's being so confiding. That's it. Come and say hi. Very nice. That's the thumb, suited up for the morning, just enjoying the elephant sighting as well. Very nice. Brian, who's his suit designer?
Armani.
Armani. Wow.
No, he doesn't mess around.
He does not mess around, that thumb. He really is. He's in there with the best. Hello, Jester. Two aspects to your question are interesting. The first, surrounding whether or not an elephant pride, I think you used the term. So that's the first aspect of your question. Remember, pride is actually a term only used to describe lions. So with an elephant would say herd. So, but very nice from you about whether or not has there ever been an instance where an elephant herd might adopt a lonely other animal, say perhaps a buffalo. And no, I don't think they would adopt another animal. Would they adopt foreign elephants from different herds? Yes, absolutely they would. Would they tolerate the presence of other herbivores within their herd? And interestingly, I don't think they do. You know, they're pretty tightly knit, they're pretty egalitarian about each other. But unlike many of the herbivores, which will completely tolerate the presence of each other, these ones don't seem to. And I find that quite interesting. So, for example, you might find a herd of impala, completely tolerated by or tolerant of a bull wildebeest who's on his own. And that, I mean, is because it's beneficial to both of them, because they both provide a little bit of security. This is wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Hello, fellow. Don't go anywhere. We're really enjoying having a sighting of you. And Catherine, you want to know, is there a plant that this elephant could eat that would get him into better shape? I'm sure there is, Catherine. I don't know what it is. I couldn't tell you what plant would necessarily help him at this stage of his life. It really is difficult to say. But there will almost certainly be, because I don't know what's wrong with him, but there will be different kinds of plants that help elephants. And there's quite a lot of evidence to suggest that elephants do self-medicate, that they have some kind of knowledge of what chemicals and what plants might actually help them when they are feeling a little bit distressed. You can see quite nicely now from the top of his shoulders there, Brian, if you don't mind. The top of his shoulders are sticking out. And that's normally indicative that the health is not quite what it might be. I don't think he's about to drop dead by any stretch, but he certainly could be a little healthier. And with any luck, that will change. Maybe he's just been a bit sick, you know. Now, of course, Joey in Australia, a very good question from you. How much do these behemoth animals eat in one day? Joey, it depends on, obviously, how old the elephant is. But an elephant like this is roughly the same size as a 10-year-old cow. And that the major research for many years, the quote was 150 kilograms a day for a 10-year-old cow. So I would say this elephant probably eats about 150 kilos a day, probably about a 3-ton animal. And that will be much higher as the animal gets older. So a big elephant bull will eat up to 300 kilograms or 660 pounds of food in one day. Now that's a massive, massive amount. And you can imagine, if you've got an area of, say, 15,000 elephants, you can imagine the effect that they must have on an environment and what would happen were you to remove that population. So, I mean, that's why we call elephants a keystone species, because they eat such a huge amount. And if you were to remove that, or remove their effect from an environment like this, well, you would have an absolutely astonishing kind of change to the vegetation. You sneak forward a little bit more, and then I think we'll probably leave our... Oh, shame, he got a little bit of a fright there. Simply because he was a bit cornered, you see. He was a bit cornered by that bush, and he wanted to make sure he could get out. I'm actually just going to wait here, everyone. I've given him a bit of a fright, and I feel a bit bad about it. Let's just let him calm down. I think with animals like this, you know, they hear at very low frequencies, much lower than the frequencies we hear at. And so I'm pretty sure that an engine like this puts out frequencies that are, well, not harmful to the ears, but certainly probably affect the ears a bit more than we think they do. Shamsung, you want to know if an elephant drops dead of natural causes, who will eat him? Well, everyone will eat him. The hyenas, the leopards, you might even, well, not likely leopards, but certainly lions and hyenas would devour him. Vultures will come and eat him. And you may even find a leopard eating on a carcass like this. So all of the major predators, except perhaps wild dogs and cheetah, which don't scavenge, well, they would come and have a go here. Even the little jackals, which we've been seeing quite a lot of recently. Okay, let's just go. I'm going to drive straight past him. I'm not going to stop next to him because I think it will make him a little nervous. He'll probably flick round to face us as we go past. No, he showed us his bottom. Let's not make him any more nervous. There's another young bull with him. There he is. I'm going to stop with him. He's exactly the same age. Doesn't have a floppy ear. Also not necessarily in the best possible condition. Hips starting to show a bit. It's a little worrying that it's this time of the year and they're already starting to look a little bit rough. Okay, let's go back across to Steph. I hope that he doesn't have another cockroach to show you. I feel he shouldn't be showing you things like that. They're rather disgusting. I'm sure he's got something else interesting though.
Well, we spied this bare branch from quite a distance away. It was very conspicuous in the fact that this particular tree just had a branch that had no bark on it. When we got a bit closer, we realized that this bark was eaten off by something other than an animal. And the way I knew that was because none of these smaller sticks are broken at all. As you can see, it's been picked relatively clean and in this funny fashion, and it's just the bark, not the wood, just the bark. And then we found the culprit. On another branch of the same tree, have a look at the way that these termites, these are a different species of termite, has now come onto this dead branch of this white berry bush and has built a daytime shelter. And when I picked away some of the casing, you can see that the termites are working in those tunnels and busy eating away the bark of the tree. And the reason why they're building these particular tunnels is because these termites don't have don't have melanin in their bodies. They're pale termites, similar to the termites that eat your homes. And they obviously don't have any protection against UV without any melanin in their systems. And so we found the culprit that is busy peeling this particular white berry bush of all its bark, its cambium layer, is that these termites, these microtermes as they call them, not macrotermes, because they don't build massive termite colonies above the ground, and that is because they take this particular cellulose, and instead of growing fungus gardens, they eat the cellulose. There are microbes in their tummy that break down the cellulose and they get all their nutrients from the plant cell. What they do then is they defecate out a pellet, and then they have to re-eat that pellet again. It's called coprophagy. Rodents do the same thing. And in that way, they get all the nutrients, all the sugars that are released by the first digestion, they get it in the second digestion. I know it's quite disgusting, but that's exactly what's happening out here. Coprophagy, microtermes, and then these wonderful homes to protect insects that don't have any melanin in their systems or in their bodies from the harmful rays of the sun. If that's not an advert for sun cream, I don't know what is. All right, now, to come on to the differences between the microtermes, which don't grow any termites, and termite mounds, and the macrotermes, which do grow termite mounds. Siberia Zumi has asked me a question: can you use these particular termite mounds as oven? I think. I've got very, very poor comms at the moment in my ears, so excuse me if I get your question wrong, but I'm going to answer what I think it is, and it's quite a nice question. Can you use these termite mounds as an oven? Absolutely, you can use these termite mounds as an oven. The majority of what's inside these termite mounds is chewed up cellulose, saliva and clay. It's also baked quite hard, and if you dig a hole in there, you can build quite a nice pizza oven inside the middle of these. Absolutely. And in places like Zambia, I've actually seen termite mounds that are mined. They mine the termite mound, they make bricks, and then they put the baked bricks, or they put the bricks that they've made from the termite mound back into the termite mound itself, and they use the termite mound as a kiln, and then they bake their bricks hard inside these kilns. So absolutely, Siberia Zumi, if that's what you ask me, can they be used as an oven? Yes, not only to make food, but also to make building materials. Wonderful structures, these guys. Right, now I've got very, very poor communications with Final Control, so we're going to walk off. You may cross over to James, and then I'm sure I'll hear whether you're with me or not as we go along. Let's see what's underneath here. These stumps are always providing us with the most amazing insects, and even, I think it was last week on Friday, a snake, a little centipede eater. Nothing underneath this one today though, not that I can see, at least anyway. Alright, let's carry on. If you excuse me just trying to contact FC while we're doing that, I just need to find out if we're not speaking into blue space. FC Steph, are we still live? So I copy.
Right here, we've come back onto Vuyatela, onto Juma, everybody. No tracks of Sandila, don't know where he is. Now, Jamie, of course, yesterday afternoon was trolling about, for those, and I don't mean that in a negative way. These days you can't say trolling, I mean trawling, that's what she was doing. She wasn't trolling, she was trawling about, trying to find those lions when she heard an alarm call. Here be the tracks of a young male leopard. Unless they're a female leopard, and I'm just hoping fervently. They're not that fresh. Can you see them there, Brian? These are not old. No, it's a female, I think. Let me just move so that Brian can show them to you. See, now this is where the human psyche really is a problem, because I so desperately want to see a young male leopard. This is big for a female. So if you follow me here, you see down here, Brian? My shadow's in the way. There's the front foot, there's the back foot. These are not old, these are from last night. My brain is saying to me that that's a female, but they're quite big for a female. In fact, they're very big for a female. And Shadow's not big, and Karula's not big either. Yeah. It's in the wrong place now, unless he came around last night. Let's drive up here where maybe we'll be lucky. I don't want to say anything. Anyway, Jamie heard kudu alarm calling while she was trawling about for the lions yesterday, and that's exactly round about where where the ping from the collar came from. I've now been totally distracted by those things. Let's drive slowly in here. Could be lurking under a bush anywhere. This is his old hunting ground, everyone. Oh, the joy it would be. They're not on the road. Walked straight across that road, obviously on some kind of a mission. Maybe in there. Let's just keep up the road, yeah. It doesn't look like anyone's driven this road today. We didn't, certainly. Hello, Green Hornet again. Nice name that you have. Big tracks of an elephant bull going up this road. You want to know about the Zika virus and whether we have it here, and do we worry about it affecting the animals? No, I've certainly not heard of any outbreaks here, and I don't think it's a factor here for some reason. Why that's the case, I don't know. Brian, do you know anything about it?
It's mainly in Brazil, that's where it's...
That's right, yeah. But I don't think it's crossed over here. I'm not sure why it wouldn't have, though. So, no, I'm afraid I can't tell you much about it or its effect on animals here, but certainly there have been no warnings issued. No one seems to be particularly worried about it. And I don't think that's just sort of lethargy on the part of our public health department, which is notoriously lethargic, but no NGOs have given us any warnings or anything like that either. I'm going to drive very slowly up this road. Just quickly, there was something I was saying there about, you know, whether he would recognize us or not. Facial recognition, I think, is an almost uniquely primate trait. We have very different looking faces, and we assess each other's faces. That's why when you meet somebody, you look at their face and you assess every little, and you do most of this subconsciously, but every little twitch in the face, every little muscle turn of the mouth down, you check to see whether someone's smiling with their eyes, you check to see if their nostrils flare, you check to see if they clench their jaws or not. And that kind of facial recognition that we as human beings have, combined with our less or decreased reliance on smell for recognition and for telling of the state of another human being, I think makes us particularly good at recognizing something on sight. Whereas I think a lot of animals use so many other cues. I don't believe impala recognize each other necessarily by the face. I mean, they look almost completely identical to me. So would he recognize me versus Brian? I'm not sure that he would, even though Brian and I look nothing alike, especially when we stand next to each other. Would he know the difference between male and female? Yes, I suspect he probably would. Animals seem to be very good at being able to tell the difference between male and female human beings. certainly primates can. I mean, it's hilarious to watch, well, if you're not involved, but monkeys, for example, when they come into camp, not our camp, but into the tourist camps, because no matter how many times you tell people not to feed the monkeys, they're unable to stop themselves. So they feed monkeys, and monkeys lose their natural fear of human beings. And then they become a menace. They don't chase men, but they chase women. And they don't, I remember I worked with a very substantial woman once at a camp north of here. By substantial, I mean she was sort of 6'2", and she was not she wasn't lean, shall we say. And so she weighed a lot more than me. And yet the monkeys would chase her, and they wouldn't come anywhere near me. So it wasn't just a size thing at all. It was a fact that they recognized her as a female. So they're very, very, very sexist, are the monkeys. Now, Steph has found a little home to show you.
Linking. Have a look at this absolutely fascinating, but completely tragic story that we're showing you right now. We've got what's quite obviously a blue waxbill's nest that you're busy having a look at. That collection of grass with those little balls on are a blue waxbill's nest. And they would have fledged some chicks a little bit earlier in the year, and the chicks would have tried to get out of the nest. But before, the blue waxbill's parents would have built their nest in this buffalo thorn because of the protection that the thorns give to it. But what you need to see is what we're showing next. Is that there is the leftovers from a chick that got stuck on one of the thorns that was meant to protect it, and obviously couldn't gain purchase with its wings or its feet to get its head off of the thorns, and perished there. And then ants came and ate all the flesh away, and what you're looking at there is the skeleton of one of the blue waxbill's chicks that had fallen out of the nest, got stuck on a thorn, and died there. I mean, isn't that a story to tell? Tragic, absolutely, but fascinating nonetheless, that you can see this little story. Blue waxbill's nest, and then this carcass that you can see there, all inside of this buffalo thorn. Wow. Really, really incredible, hey? Something like this just happens. See if we can show you the nest again from a different angle. That's the nest there. It's a collection of grass. And what's quite common in this area is the blue waxbills are building these nests in these buffalo thorns. In other areas, blue waxbills build this nest, and then you find wasps that come and build their nests at the entrance to the blue waxbill's nest. Which one comes first, I haven't really seen yet. I don't know if the blue waxbills go and look for the wasp nest and then build their nest there, or whether or not the wasps look for the nests and then build their nests next to the blue waxbill's nest. I don't quite know which one comes first. I would imagine that the birds, being the more intelligent, well, in how I judge intelligence anyway, being the more intelligent of the two organisms, would first look for the wasp nest and then come and build their nest there. But in this particular case, the blue waxbills are using the thorns and the thorn barrier that a buffalo thorn gives them as a hiding place, which was also unfortunately the demise of one of their chicks. Unfortunate, but isn't that incredible? Right, let's carry on going. You might cross over to James. I have zero communications with Final Control, and so I don't know whether you're with me or whether you're not with me still, but you'll probably be going to James, and we'll find something else exciting for you and show you when we get there.
Looks like there's an alien in my skin. Oh, sorry everybody, I was just trying out a new accent there with Brian. He was having a bit of a giggle. Anyway, I'm going to be in a lot of trouble when I get home for doing that, of course. It's all right. I'll cope with it. I'll cope with it. No further tracks of young male leopard, unfortunately. But we're heading towards the end of the drive. I'm going to come back into this area this afternoon and we'll see if I can't be lucky and find whatever what it was that was making those tracks. Otherwise, there were some very large, hyenas, very large elephant bull tracks heading this way. So what we'll do is head on to quarantine and see if there's anything going on over there. Very nice that Steph found that, hello. This is quite useful to know, of course, if we're going for a run later. Buffalo bull with little friend. See his friend there, Brian? Yes. It's a special friend, Mr. Red-billed oxpecker. That's so nice to see. They're just so relaxed at this time of the day. The birds have settled in. There's the odd chirrup coming from a bush or two. But otherwise there's silence and there's just the odd little bit of ruffling in the leaves as a gentle breeze blows through them. And I've said to you many times before, if you ever want to feel wilderness healing or a sense of true relaxation, this time of the day, especially in the middle of winter, when you'll feel precisely as relaxed as this buffalo bull does. He's done his feeding for the day. There's just enough heat in the sun, and he's going to lie there and he will feel a complete and utter sense of contentment, but for the flies that are bothering him slightly. But if you ever really truly want to unwind, this is exactly the atmosphere that you want to do it in. I'll just tell you the very subtle things that I can hear now. I mentioned the leaves slightly rustling, the odd one dropping to the floor. The tap, tap, tapping of probably a cardinal woodpecker looking for a late lunch. Yes, there'll be the odd buzzing of a fly. And in the distance always, I don't